Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. My name is Betsy Stone. I am a retired psychologist in the United States, and I am really honored to be here with these wise and learned women who are going to teach us about what is happening in Israel, in the tunnels, in Gaza. Before we begin, I need to inform you that unfortunately, Dr. Blumenfeld is not able to join us today. And so Dr. Aviva Grossman, who is an MD, not a PhD, has agreed to step in and join us and guide us in his stead. Today, which is May 25th, 2025, marks 597 days, almost 600 days since October 7th. There are still 58 hostages held in Gaza, of whom we assume 23 are still alive. In the chat, you will get lots of information about captions, I hope, and different languages which will be available to you. We will be conducting this webinar in English. The organization that brings us together today, BOU, it means come together in Hebrew. It is a volunteer-led Israeli nonprofit initiative by both medical and mental health professionals, launched in November 2024. It emerged in response to the urgent need for public awareness and action regarding the rescue of the hostages that have been held and are still being held by Hamas. The initiative focuses on the physical and psychological trauma that has been endured by the hostages, their potential recovery, and the impact on their families, Israeli society, and Jewish communities worldwide. It began with professional lectures to medical teams and spread to the general public across Israel. Today, BOU includes over 1,000 volunteers and continues to grow. It is driven by the belief that sharing professional facts and insights about the hostages' condition, both during captivity and after, helps raise awareness of and the urgency of bringing the rest of them home. The struggle to bring the hostages home is a moral calling that reflects the deepest values of the Jewish people, Judaism, and the state of Israel: the sanctity of life, mutual responsibility, and human compassion. BOU's volunteers refuse to be bystanders, calling for action over silence and holding on for healing and for hope. Today, with us, we have Dr. Aviva Grossman, who is a graduate of the Ben Gurion Medical School, previously head of QA in Maccabi Health Services and deputy medical director of Ha-Sharon District Maccabi. And we also have Dr. Mirav Roth, who is a psychoanalyst, an associate professor at the University of Haifa, founder and director of First Line Med, a long-term free healthcare plan for victims and returnees of October 7th. She is a key team member at BOU. We thank BOU and both of you specifically for initiating today's webinar. We also thank the partners who have helped producing today's event, the Union for Reform Judaism and the Hope for Israel Alliance. More information about BOU and as well as its partners can be found in the links which will be shared in the chat momentarily, I hope. There they are. So we're going to start with a presentation by Dr. Aviva Grossman, who is going to teach us about some of the physical experiences of the hostages when they were in captivity and thereafter. Aviva, it's yours.
Glad to be here tonight. Can you share the presentation, please? Due to some technical miracles by Zoom, Adva will advance the presentation and I'll speak. You always need a team. Well, I'm sorry that Amir Blumenfeld is not with us tonight, but I have to say a few thankful, many grateful words about Amir Blumenfeld. He used to be trauma unit head in the IDF, and he was the first hostages doctor. There's a new job in life which is called the hostages doctor. When just the situation has evolved, he volunteered to coordinate the information about them, to plan how to bring them back to Israel. And since then, he teaches us, all the physicians that give lectures in hospital, etc., all the materials, and he is part of the headquarters of the kidnappers, the kidnapped families, and they update from time to time all the information they get from the IDF, from forensic materials. So I thank Amir Blumenfeld. I have to say something about bow. In Hebrew, the bow means not just bow together, it means let's save them and save us. And I think it's very important, this sentence, the logo means not just saving the hostages, to save us as a community, as a nation, and also as people, as persons, as human beings. And just doing the job that I'm doing tonight, guys, you are helping me. I mean, volunteering is one of the cures to get out of this terrible, terrible situation. So let's progress with the presentation. You can ask me whatever you want, like in the chat, and I'll attend it later. So let's go forward, Adva.
Aviva, there is also a Q&A function on the bottom of the screen, and we will be monitoring that as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm sure there'll be many, many, many questions. Now, just to be on the same page, we all remember this horrible day, the October 7th, which was a Shabbat and a holiday, 6/29. There was an extensive missile attack on Israel. You see the figure here. Everyone was in the shelters, and there were 6,000 terrorists crossing many points on the border of Gaza Strip, invading and doing all these horrible things, and kidnapping and killing. And there was a bonus, the Nova Musical Festival, which happened to be very, very close to the Gaza Strip, which was having audience of at least 4,000 people. Some of them couldn't run away from there, so it was really a storm. There were multiple dead on the 7th, casualties, missing, kidnapped. There was a lot of chaos. And it took time until everyone realized what to do with the situation and what is actually happening. So Adva, please. After not just a day, after a few weeks, we have realized that of all the casualties and the dead, there are 251 people abducted from Israel to Gaza, males, females, and the hallmark is children from 9 months. We know who is the baby of 9 months until 18 years. There were seniors, 30 seniors above the age of 65 to 86, and seniors, with all respect, captivity in tunnels is not the situation to be in it. So we'll go forward just to be on the same page. And, we all are now practicing our mathematics every day, who is there, who is not there. So if my numbers are not fitting, it's because the situation is not always very, very clear. It started October 23. Now in May 2025, there are still 58 hostages. 35 of them are declared dead, and probably 33 are alive. And to break down who is with us and who came back home, as you see, agreements have achieved the majority, the vast majority of people that came home. 148 people came back because of the agreement. By military operation, only 8. There were bodies that were returned until May this year, 41. The total, I will leave you the math for later, but we should stop by now to declare that there are probably 58 hostages. Most of them are dead, but the alive ones also. We need to save both the alive and both the declared death to bring them home. So let's go to the next slide. Here we can see what has nearly evolved to the end of this saga. This is the second agreement that was supposed to have 2 phases. Phase 1 was achieved. 25 Israeli civilians and soldiers were brought home, all the 5 girls, the soldiers, and 5 foreign citizens. 8 bodies were recovered on the second agreement, but this was the first phase. phase 2 never happened. And this is how we are stuck until now with all this situation. Let's go on with the slides. Oops, that's okay. About the tunnel confinement, most of them are in tunnel confinement, and must tell you that there's no literature, there's no books, there's no article scientific about tunnel confinement. What we know is what we think, we as people, I mean, as common knowledge, what we think about tunnels, eventually what we hear about people that are coming back and what we see from pictures, that's what it is. It is what we think it is. It's a dark and closed space with limited access to natural light and fresh air, with all the implications that it has on the mental and the physical structure of a person. There's a restricted movement. There's a minimal sensory stimulation at all, especially if you are alone. There's poor hygiene in these terrible conditions, and there's a lack of food or water. And I mean by lack of food or water, it means like half a pita a day. And water, you can see the urine in the bottle of that was found of the victims of the September last year murders. So you can see the color of the urine, which means they are really severely dehydrated. So this is what we think is happening. And we can have the testimonial of Matan Sen-Gauker with his brave mother, Einav. I'm sure you heard about her fight to bring her back. We can see pictures of Matan shining, plumped, round face, smiling, and we can see his picture taken from his testimonials taken by his captives. He's thin, he's pale. Let's listen to him, what he says about the conditions.
אנחנו חיים בחוסר מזון, חוסר שתייה, חוסר תרופות, מים, חולדות, מרגישים וחיות אחרות. חוסר בהיגיינה משפיע עלינו קשות. אנחנו נמצאים במחלות עור, מקשקשים, אין לנו סבון.
Thank you, Adva. And I'll translate what he's saying. First of all, you can hear his catatonic voice. He's dictating words. He's in fear. He's not in a good mental condition, not physical and not mental. And he's saying in the end of December that life is not easy. He's a young boy. I mean, his description is understatement of what's going on there. Life is not easy. It's horrible. Lack of food, lack of water, lack of medications, of course. There are red spiders and other animals around. He says his skin has dandruffs, which means he's scratching it all the time, lack of hygiene. There are skin diseases and no soap. I mean, he's a boy. No soap is the least of his problems, but the situation, as you can see by his face. So we'll move forward and see what we can learn about hostages in tunnels. We can move forward, Adva. There's another testimonial, but Daniela Aloni, she's a 45-year-old woman. She was released after being kept with her daughter, 6-year-old Emilia. She was 49 days, and she says they take you down to a tunnel. It's complete darkness. It's damp. Clothes are wet, stinking, no air. We entered the next tunnel. She saw injuries. People were battered, open wounds, bruised, limping. People saw their loved ones murdered, and her daughter saw it all. So we can see the picture of the tunnel and her testimonial, so we understand it all. Let's go further. Now, what we know about the situation in the tunnels, again, I said there's no article, there's no publication. What I'm going to show you in the next 2 slides is what we know from literature. The literature comes from prisoners of war. Prisoners of war are young, strong, combat people, and they were taken as prisoners in different situations than being dragged from your bed. And what we know is about Korea, Vietnam, some aerospace medicine, the Second World War. And what we know that they're affected in every system existent in the body. And we are talking about young combat personnel. They have sleep problems, insomnia, and it can affect your whole well-being. Immune system is low because of lack of vitamins, etc. The heart is not pumping enough. There's even lack of mass of the heart, so it can pump less, and blood pressure is reduced, and there's some problems with like arrhythmia and problems that are caused by damage to the heart. Respiratory issues, they are worse if you have some pre-condition and there's always irritation because of smoke, because of less of air, because of dampness. Of course, bones and muscles are injured because there's no light, there's no sunlight, there's no calcium. Bones are becoming brittle. You can have a pathological fracture. And also the muscles go less and less by their volume, and there's a joint stiffness, like when you have your leg in a cast. You're not moving, there's decreased flexibility. So we'll go on for the next slide on other structures of the body that are affected. All that we know from, again, this literature about young people, digestive system, of course, constipation and diarrhea, because of lack of vitamins, lack of proteins, and of course, all the hygiene and the bacteria around. The neurological system even goes through reduction in cognitive abilities, of course, hormonal imbalance, the sensory system hampered and injured. There's vision changes like tunnel vision, light sensitivity, hearing. You sometimes hear things that are not there, like auditory hallucinations, hyperacusis. You hear more than what is even heard around. The touch is problematic. Walking, you need to feel the ground. So you can hardly have a balance when you go out of this situation. Smell and taste, of course. So that's what we know from the literature. And if we add to what we know from the literature, what our hostages kidnapped they have a trauma which is worse than being in combat and being somewhat prepared to the results. The sexual assaults, which we're not going to go deep into it. Some of them have chronic diseases, even young people like Crohn's disease, all kinds of digestive problems. Of course, there's all the time psychological abuse of all spectrum. There's no medical care there, no drugs, of course. Even people that go out of semi-anesthesia, like Mia Shem, that had her hand nearly ripped out of her body. She was having a surgery even without medications, and then she had to clean herself and no painkillers. Of course, there's poor hygiene. So this is in addition to what we think is happening to them. Let's go forward. And of course, the hallmark is mental and emotional effects. With the sensory deprivation, it can, of course, hamper your mental situation. The socialization, being alone and traumatized, can bring up things even that you have before or you didn't have before. So all this loneliness situation can bring depression and the cognitive decline. Of course, all around them, there's a bigger loss. They don't know what happens to their relatives, what happens to their friends that were with them. And of course, this is a really good ground to develop later on post-traumatic stress disorder. And you can assume that post-traumatic stress disorder is not just mental, it's social isolation. There are a lot of actually studies from Israel that show that, this post-traumatic stress disorder from Yom Kippur and others, they have lost more comorbidity in the future. They die earlier, they have more diseases than their peers that even were in combat. But if you are a prisoner, a hostage, you're kidnapped, your post-traumatic stress disorder is even more. So we'll move forward. Of course, it has to do with it's okay. This is a diagram that represents everything. It was designed by the health team we have now an authority or headquarters of the families of the kidnapped and the hostages. And they showed, I'm surprised, they didn't show the heart somehow. They couldn't, the heart broke. They have all the system here impaired. Eyes, breath, kidneys, everything. There's no single system in the body that is not damaged by the tunnels, by being a hostage in a horrible condition. So we'll move forward. And of course, this has to do with the timeline, the duration of the isolation and confinement. Short term is less, medium time, weeks to months is less, is also injury, but now we are talking about, and this is from literature, from months to years, there's long-term psychological effects, immune system suppression, which affects all your body, and of course with cardiovascular and metabolic changes. So we can imagine what happens now in 5-9-7 days. It's okay, Adva. Now, this is the second winter that they had to overcome. First winter was terrible, but this one, they have lower reserves with them. They are malnourished, they have less fat around them, they have no proteins, they have less immunity to fight everything. They are mentally exhausted, everything is damp around them, no clothing, no heating. And we know how easily when you are so low on your reserves, any virus in this condition can affect you. You have the virus, then comes the bacteria, then you have the pneumonia, and no medications, and no treatment, and no warming. And so this winter, we can assume what it did to some of them, or maybe to all of them. So we move forward, Adva. Just to show you pictures of some of them, that we have pictures while they were in captivity. And from all the pictures, somehow it always, aches my heart to see the picture of Hirsch Pauline. He was you can see in the small picture, this shining, smiling, strong boy, and how he looked in the tunnel when he gave testimonials and was recorded by the Hamas. What strikes me more is the findings when they recovered his body, they brought his body back, that he was weighing only 52 kilograms, and he is a big boy, 1.85 meters, and his BMI was 17. I mean, normal people are between 25, some of us are 30 and more, but 17 is really starvation and in life danger. So we'll go further. And after that, usually I don't have to say anything. We have those 3 hostages that were released in after 90 days. Remind you, is 597 days today. Look how they looked before, and everyone, when they saw the picture, the word that came to everyone's mouth is Muslim. They look like Holocaust survivors, all of them. So I think this gives the answer, what we think about the tunnels, what we think about from literature. So this is the reality. That's what comes out in the other end. So we'll move forward. Now, just we have to say that what I have described is lethal. Everyone is in humanistic, dangerous condition. There are 41 hostages that died in Gaza. We know that 7 were executed, 4 were killed by airstrikes, 3 were killed by some misunderstanding of who is there trying to run away. 1 was killed in crossfire. And again, I said, now Israelis, we are very good in mathematics now. There are 26 that we don't know what happened. And we can assume that what happened is all these terrible conditions in the tunnels and the trauma and the torture that they're going through. And what I can say that this 41, 26, this is a preventable death. If they were home, it wouldn't happen. This is very painful, that this is all preventable. So we move forward. And now we have many testimonials of the ones that came back in last year in 2023, and the one that came this year in 2025. Of course, here it's the pictures of the ones that came after 2 months, so they're relatively happy. Hunger, malnutrition, poor hygiene, it was obvious. There was neglect of chronic diseases, sexual and physical abuse, psychological abuse. Families, of course, now we know more about the families. There are formal studies in Israel that show that they don't go to family practitioner, they don't get their medications, families are depressed, families get divorced. It's the whole, not just the first circle, second, third circle are all affected by the situation of the hostages coming back or not coming back yet. So we'll move forward. There's plenty of literature now because all of the hospitals, many of the hospitals participate in the coming back program. There's Bellinson and Schneider and Asaf HaRofeh and Ichilov and Sheba, of course, and Soroka. All of them are receiving the people that were rescued, and they have written some medical articles in relatively very good publications. And I think they all repeat the same findings. And one of the findings that I stressed here is this infestation. Lice infestation is just something that, the kindergarten teacher send your child home. You start to scratch, you start to have secondary infections, you are bothered by it, you have infection by it, and there's no medication. And of course, there's shrapnel injuries and other injuries and gastrointestinal pathogens. There's a work by Schneider Hospital. They had also some adults, not just children. They have every pathogen that can live in your guts, whatever. It takes a lot of time to recover the guts. And they're in a bad starvation situation, so recovering the guts is not easy with all these pathogens. We'll move forward. And this is the last example that I'm going to show about what's happening there. And this is the worst of them. Can you touch the click again, Adva? There's something I want to show up there. Just touch the click. You see the, oh, no, go back. Go back. I wanted to show you the subject, the living in hell. This is written by the health team, as I said, by the Hostages and Missing Family Forum, which is a totally volunteer forum, which also Dr. Amir Blumenfeld is there. And this is really hell. We have a tan horn, which has some skin disease, a severe skin disease that can develop to a lethal one, and he is malnourished, and combination of skin diseases, which is serious, and starvation can be lethal. And Matan Engerst, which his father has a picture, a video of him being lynched while being kidnapped. He's wounded. You can see his face, and you can't see his arm, but he's severely wounded. And we have Alon Ohal. He's a pianist. He's a talented young boy, and he was kidnapped from the music festival, and he has injuries like shrapnel, and he's held in chains alone throughout the entire captivity period. So I don't know, living in hell seems, I think, a good topic. Let's move forward. That's as the underline of it all, get them out of hell. It's hell, it's our duty as people, as a nation, as human beings to take them out. And I want to go further a little bit. This is something optimistic that Amir brought to me, and it gives us the notion that everything is terrible, but there's a good health system. We are a good society. We can make it happen that they'll come back to life. There will be injuries for long term, I'm sure, physical, mental, everything. But with bringing them back, we can start the recovery of us all. And this is a movie about, not yet, I just want to explain. This is Elma Avraham. She was kidnapped when she was 83. She had a very, very simple medical condition. She had hypothyroidism, and all she had to take is a small tablets a day, and she, of course, didn't bring it with her. She didn't know she's going to Gaza. And after 2 months of not having this medication, all her metabolic status was down. She came back with 35 degrees Celsius and with heartbeats of about 50. And she was brought by helicopter immediately from the border to intensive care, where she spent a few months. But now we can see her in Soraka Hospital after a few months of rehabilitation. So let's, please, Adva, can you show us? Shall I sing? Because we can't hear the song. Oh no. Well, all of you can join me. It's Leonard Cohen, Dance Me to the End of Love. And she dances well. And she even does this trick with her hip. Sometimes you can see it. Too bad, but maybe we can send the movie to you. It's with the agreement of a family to show it. So there's hope. We need to bring them back and get back to where we can get them to their full potential after this damage. And one more thing I want to show you, just to, to have some hope in the end of it. No, let's go further, not backward, forward. No, forward. Yes. In the States, Eurovision is not very popular, but in Israel, this is one of our pride moments. We are good. We are good at many things that we do. And this young lady, Yuval Rafael, she was rescued from what is called Migunit Mavet. There were shelters around the Nova, and all this area around the Gaza Strip has shelters. We know that this is a dangerous area. So there are shelters, and these young people were hiding there, hoping to be rescued. Most of them were killed in these shelters. That's why they are called Migunit Mavet. And she was lucky enough to be under bodies. So there was a pile of bodies above her, and she managed not to suffocate below them, or she was rescued, recovered, had some hospitalization and rehabilitation, and she represented us even to the second place in the Eurovision. So all I want to say is bring them home. We'll do the miracle and try to make them as healthy as possible and give us pride as being a nation of Jewish people and human beings doing the best to resolve this terrible situation. And thank you. And if you have questions, I'm willing and happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Aviva. What we're going to do now is turn to Dr. Roth and have her describe to us what the psychological implications are of the physical experiences which you have shared with us. I know there are a number of questions in the Q&A, and I believe Dr. Roth will address many of those. So, Mirav, you're on.
Yes, hi. I will address them gladly if you will help me when I finish talking, because I didn't see it until now. I was concentrating. So first of all, thank you all for coming, and it's already a big support for us. We need all the support we can get, and the fact that you care and that you're here is already helpful and meaningful. And I will try to portray the psychological injuries, but also the healing forces of the hostages and the returnees. And I want to begin by saying that I'm giving a general description. Every example was allowed by the patients for me to share. I will tell you how I know them. I'm working with the returnees from the first agreement, and I'm working with returnees from the second agreement after 500 days. And as Betsy said at the beginning, I'm also directing FLM, the organization that works also with the Israeli Hostages Families Forum, and we have a group of supervision that I'm hearing about the work with the returnees. So this is a broad picture, a general picture about private people, and we will always remember that they are Gadi and Liri and Nama, and not this general picture I'm portraying. I want to begin by saying that we already can feel the first symptom or the first injury that I want to talk about, and that's dissociation. Dissociation is a defense mechanism, a very natural defense mechanism. And already when we heard, even when I hear Aviva and I heard this description many times, maybe because we do this lecture wherever people are willing to hear us, you have to dissociate, at least partly, because it is too devastating. And
Can you define, Mirav, will you define dissociation for people who don't know what that
that's
is?
what I'm trying to do now. So when the psyche is overloaded with something that is too intimidating, too threatening, too burdening, beyond the capacity of the psyche to contain, it splits itself. So you hear the words, but you don't really let them in. You don't really know where you are. You're a bit puzzled, or you're a bit confused, or you're less emotional. The psyche knows how to arrange itself. It's a bit like an electrical shutdown, because you don't want the house to be on fire, right? So the psyche does the same. It detaches itself from the experience because it's too intimidating. So when we hear Aviva, we already do that. And actually we do that for 1.5 years now, all of us, I think, around the world, because we are witnessing such huge tragedy. First October 7, and now in the whole region, also in Gaza, we're witnessing such a huge tragedy, human tragedy. If we would let it in its full scope, we would collapse. because we care about people. So this is the first symptom. And now, if we feel it by hearing Aviva, by being just witnesses from far, just try and imagine what do the hostages feel and how dissociative they become when they are in captivity. So this is the first very big injury that they suffer. When we had a supervision group with therapists who worked with the returnees, it took us a while to realize we're learning a new material, right? It's not, we didn't ever take care of returnees from captivity. So it took us a while to realize that we are meeting a new phenomena, which is this flat emotional communication. So it was, I remember the moment that one of the therapists, an analyst, a very experienced analyst, said, "I'm not sure she needs therapy." And then I listened to her and I said, this woman, her son was murdered and her husband is in captivity. I think she needs therapy. I think she's so dissociated that you don't even meet her by now. It will take a long time until it will, she will defreeze her emotional life, and then you will know how terribly wounded she is. So this is the first injury. The second one, and it's all connected together. The second one is what we call learned helplessness. Learned helplessness means when you give an effort, when you are really trying very hard to achieve some goal and you don't achieve it. Quite the contrary. The more you try, the farther it becomes. So people in first October 7, they try to save themselves, they try to save their families, and they failed. Some of the hostages saw their closest family members butchered or burned, and they were taken away. So this was the first extremely painful helplessness and crucial one. And then from one day to the other, they are in a death threat, which is not moment to moment, it's second to second. All the time, it's very hard for us to capture that from moment to moment to moment, you are all the time in a real, very real death threat. You are surrounded by armed Hamas soldiers and terrorists, and you cannot do anything. So you are completely passive and in the most extreme emergency. This is a paradox that the mind cannot bear. So you lower and lower your sense of sovereignty, sense of power, of control, because otherwise you are again in such a tension that the psyche cannot bear. And you become more and more and more helpless. Then when you will come out from captivity, which we need to make others to come out, and I will tell you why they can afterwards do their work in order to regain their forces, but it takes a long, long time until they understand that there is control in life, because it was so validated from moment to moment that you are helpless completely and compliant and passive. A third injury is a loss of orientation both in time and in space. I have patients from the first agreement, which means already a year and a half almost outside, and they are still very confused about time and places and losing things. And it takes a long, long time to recover because in captivity, you lose track of time completely. Some of them are tortured by putting only light for weeks or only darkness as a kind of an abusive treatment. And also they are moved from one apartment to the other. It's all the time bombing, which is very, very frightening. You're in an apartment and the house is collapsing near you, and it's just a matter of luck if you die or not. Some of the houses that collapse are the families of the terrorists, and then they are afraid that they will kill you. So you're not oriented at all. You are completely mixed up. And there is an expression in psychiatry of derealization. You don't know reality anymore. So there is derealization, depersonalization, meaning I don't know my body. Some of them are locked in chains by their feet. Some are in cages. So they dissociate from their bodies. They are really disoriented very, very deeply. There is a loss of a sense of choice. I don't even have to explain, right? They cannot choose anything. They cannot choose when to go to the bathroom, when to sleep, when to be awake. Some of them were not allowed to cry, nothing. And of course, not to do what you want the most, which is to speak to your family members and to be free. So all the sense of choice, which is very natural for us, is taken away. The sense of trust, the same, which is so basic. It's so basic. Our basic trust is so crucial in our lives. We don't think about it. And it is taken away so terribly and strongly, including the fact that they are not taken away, saved by their own country, which is very, very difficult for them to understand. You know, there is an expression by a psychoanalyst named Winnicott. He says, the most terrible thing for a child is that he will hide and no one will come to look him up and call him. So these people were forgotten. They don't understand. One day, today I thought, pregnancy, 9 months. You know, we have time limits. A year is a time limit. It's already almost 600 days that these people are there and no one comes to take them. So this is a complete loss of sense of trust in anything. A child knows that when parents are talking in the media, they say, I want to know that when my child is in trouble, I can come and take him. This is the most elementary thing for a parent, right? That we want to know that when my child is now in Argentina, if she calls me, I'm in Argentina in 2 days, because this is what parents do. And we have parents who are waiting for 600 days for kids that Aviva showed us their pictures, wounded and terrified and starved, and they cannot do anything. So this is something that all that I'm saying is the same about the family members of the hostages. Last week, we did this kind of lecture here in Israel, because we do that a lot in Israel as well, in order to encourage involvement of everybody. And after me, a sister of a returnee spoke, and she said, every symptom that Merav told about the hostages, I can say it's also relevant to me, because she also lost her sense of trust, a sense of choice, everything. The next symptom, and the very dangerous one, is the survival's guilt. Even in captivity, people say that they felt guilty for being alive because either hostages around them were killed, and as we heard, 41 hostages were killed during captivity, or they witnessed family members being killed before, so they feel guilty. And this is a very dangerous symptom. I work with traumatic loss for 30 years, and this is one of the most dangerous symptoms, because when someone has survival's guilt, they think they have this illusory belief that being loyal to the dead means dying with them. And we need to do a lot of psychoanalytic work in order to show them the way out of that notion, that illusory notion, in order to understand that real loyalty will mean taking the dead with you into life, not the other way around. Not dying from sorrow, but living with sorrow. Another injury, another symptom is a complete loss of identity. This is very strong. We can understand that a word like hostage, tunnel, returnee, deal, all these words are words that quickly fade the significance and narrow the returnee's sense of personal identity. These people had families, they had hobbies, they had all the ways that they were related to life are not relevant for them in captivity. And to tell you the truth, also not when they come out. The returnees from the first agreement, a year and a half out, most of them did not return to work, did not return to the same social circle, find it very, very hard to know their identity. By the way, I think it's also true about all of us, that we are confused. I'm confused. Who am I? I knew who I was, a second generation, never again. I'm the answer to my father's prayers that we will be strong, and I'm wanted in the world. I can come to a conference. We have changed a lot, and we need to realize who we are. What world are we living in? Who I am is related to what world I'm living in. So it's all the identity is a challenge to everyone, but much more so to the hostages that were in captivity for 500 days, taken away from their identity completely. And I think another way to define this injury or another injury is that they feel as if they have been cast out from the human community. Like Katsetnik, the Holocaust survivor, said that he's from another planet. So they also feel in another planet when in captivity and from another planet when they come back. Because this is really something out of any imagined reality that we could think of. I remember my father, when I was a child, I was pretty young, and it was very startling, very, very strange to me. He said that when he was a little child in the Holocaust, there were moments that he felt as if he is a bug clinging to survival, and he wasn't sure if it was justified. And I remember my reaction. It was my beloved father, my strong, fat, happy, beloved father. And I couldn't imagine, why would anyone feel that it's not justified to try to survive? But when you're cast out of humanity so strongly and so bizarrely and so cruelly, that's how you feel. And two more symptoms. One is obscure loss. They speak about obscure loss, meaning that many of the losses they can't even count. It's interesting that even the returnees say that even in captivity, sometimes they would tell themselves, what is exactly the loss that I'm sensing? They were so passive, so submissive, so out of life that they lost and so dissociated that they said, okay, I'm here, I'm waiting. And they even they couldn't tell themselves exactly what and how deep and how crucial are the psychological injuries they suffer from. And when they come out, it takes time for them as well to realize how paralyzed they are, and what a long, long way they have until they will feel who they are and how to live again in the world. And the last one is delayed mourning because people are still in captivity. All the returnees say, until they come out, I cannot begin to recover. Most of them are recruited in order to do advocating so that the other hostages will come out. So all of us, and of course the returnees, suffer from delayed mourning, and also the hostages. They cannot mourn what is not yet ended. The war is not ended, the hostages are not back yet. So this is another heavy burden that they and we suffer. But, and I will say it quickly, there are also healing forces. And I want to say I'm a great believer in the human strength. Also as a second generation, you know, transgeneration is also helpful in knowing, and we need to remember that 3 years after Auschwitz, we built a country. So the human resilience is outstanding when you give us terms that we can begin to flourish again. And when I work with the returnees, I tell them that you know, when I met the returnees from the second agreement, I told them, the first thing I told them is that, listen, you are not doomed to any future. You are a part of your future. You are writing your story. You're continuing to write your story. And I have in the back of my mind my father, who wrote his story in a way that gave him afterwards rich, meaningful life. So this is a part of our work with released hostages. We know for them. We have hope for them because we know, and I know it also from many patients that I worked with traumatic loss. So what helps them? What helps them? The first cure is love and solidarity. One of the most moving things working with returnees is hearing that what made them preserve themselves in captivity was the wish to preserve themselves for their own, for their beloved family members, for their mother, for their wife, for their children, of course, for their sisters and brothers, not the preserving themselves for themselves alone, not even first. And they took all the efforts they could in order to survive for the family members. They tell us how they did imaginary talks with their family members. In general, the imagination is a very strong tool for survival in extreme situation like captivity. So one of the things they imagined was speaking to their family members, imagining them and telling them, I will keep myself safe for you and you will keep yourself safe for me, because they were worried terribly for the ones outside, which is, I think, very, very moving. The fact that they could even think about anyone else when they are in such extreme suffering. They said to themselves, they imagined a trip with a family to the forest. They could be in darkness for weeks, but they could imagine the sunlight and walking with their beloved ones, and it gave them strength to survive, to keep on moving in order to get to that point. They listened to imaginary music that they knew from outside in order to keep moving. So the wish to be reconnected with your beloved ones. Viktor Frankl, you remember when he was walking in the snow and a friend told him, oh my God, if our wives would see us now. And then he says to himself, love is the meaning of life. Love is so important. And he doesn't know if his wife is alive or dead then, but he knows that love can hold him. And then, of course, he writes his book about meaning, the importance of meaning, having a meaning. And love was one of the strongest cures he was speaking about. The second inspiring curative factor is the ethical standing. It's a real healing force. I see it all the time ever since I'm working with the families of the murdered, with the families of the hostages, and with the released hostages. That and it's also very moving to discover that the ethical stance that holds them. First of all, because despite the the inhumanity that they have encountered, they know from inside, and it protects them, that they know how a human being is supposed to be treated. They know how they would treat another. And they're trying with the other hostages they're trying to keep their human values, and it keeps them alive. It's very meaningful to them. And sometimes it's also life-saving. There is a story I told many times. I don't have too much time, but I will say it shortly. A woman that was kidnapped from her home, and she was with a rifle at her back, walking, and then she saw another terrorist, another Nukhba, holding her young daughter. So she ran to him. And she said, mother, daughter, and she pulled her daughter to her. Ima bat. I can cry every time I tell her. And she told this to me, and I started crying, and I said, how did you still see inside him a human being, a person with values, that he would react to this flaw, to this need for him to understand that you cannot separate a mother and daughter? And he gave her her daughter. And she was with her in captivity after that for 50 days. So the ethical standing, knowing that the other is a human being, knowing that I'm a human being, and knowing my values is a very strong and important curative factor. What I see is that the spirit is holding the psyche. When the psyche collapses, the spirit holds him. And also belief, faith is also a part of it. Religious faith or existential faith is also a part of it. And okay, there are more, but I think I will stop here, because if we want to leave time for questions and conversation, maybe we should.
Thank you. Both of you, thank you. The information that you are giving us is extraordinary. And many of the questions that were in the Q&A have already been answered. I wonder, Dr. Grossman, what kind of physical symptomatology still exists in the hostages who have been redeemed a year and a half, and the ones who are more recently released? Are we seeing, I assume we would see, long-term physical impacts? Aviva, you have to unmute.
Well, I think one of the biggest struggle is to fight the malnutrition. And the people that came back have really wounded gut. And you know, the game with a wounded gut, you can't overload it with vitamins and proteins. So I think it takes a few months even to go back to a normal gut, to get rid of all these pathogens and to start absorbing normal food. And I think dietitians I have listened to some of their lectures. It's a long fight to recover the gut. And from there, you can go to other diseases, ailments that they have. For example, these two young ladies, Emily and Romy, which one of them had injured her shoulder, and the other one, her fingers were torn off while being abducted. So it seems they got some supervision in Gaza, sort of, but they're hospitalized until now. It's a few months, and the orthopedic surgery is going on and on to try to fix it, because what is torn in a very brutal way, shoulder, and they seemed okay when they came back to Israel. One was bandaged, and the other one had. The reason I'm saying it, because we have pictures and they testify about what's going on to them. They're still under medical repairs, so to call. And even Mia Shem, which her wonderful mom Karen is giving lectures. She's always many times a partner of us in the lectures. She came back only after 2 months with her hands torn. She's still being taken care of. Some of the orthopedics injuries are still, it's a long thing to recover a bone or a muscle that was torn for a long time. I know that eventually, when these orthopedics problems are being solved in a way, the longer clinics, the long-term clinics, usually are focusing on internal medicine and psychiatry. This is the usually long-term kind of supervision or assistance that they have. This will take a long time. Like, there's a guy that came back with Crohn's disease. It takes time to balance him. Elderly people with hypertension and heart problems, it takes a long time to bring them back to what they were before. So these are the two main clinics that supervise the people that came back.
Thank you.
Also, Hannah Katzir, one of the women came out, passed away a year after her release because of her heart state that was due to captivity.
Yes.
And she had a lot on her heart. Her daughter is lecturing with us, Carmel Pati Katzir. Her husband was killed 7th of October. The son was kidnapped and murdered a few months into captivity. And she was being a hostage for 2 months, and she was 74. So the whole year after she came back, the whole year she spent nearly in Tel HaShomer, intensive care, in and out, and she had heart problem. And as her daughter testifies, they asked her, did your mother have a heart disease? She said, no, she had hypertension, not treating hypertension for a few months. And then having all these disasters, it has a toll on the body. So thank you, Mira. In the lectures in Israel, for me, it's something that I always show. I show Hannah Katzir. I know I can show all the hostages and the families, but somehow this elderly lady with a lovely, lovely, lovely family that, her heart was broken, both physically and mentally. She's always symbolizes me how deep is the wound that we
Yes.
are.
Yes.
I think that the reason I asked that question of Aviva Mirav is because I can't imagine that people recover from this experience. How does someone integrate this extraordinary disruption? And I'm thinking really not only of the hostages, but also of their families and frankly, the country. How does the country understand? How do the families integrate this horror?
Yes. So first of all, it's very difficult right now because the country is in chaos. We are at war, we are in political chaos, we're in financial chaos. So it's very difficult right now for the country to recover. We didn't even begin to get into a situation that we can begin to recover, to mourn everything that we lost and everything that we're going through, this huge tragedy. But on the other hand, I do want to say that, and again, I'm quite confident by my former experience, but also by my working with the released hostages a year and a half from now, that there is a way to go back to life. It doesn't mean going back to who you were. There are 3 illusions with time in traumatic time. You cannot go back to who you were. You cannot born anew after you are released, and you don't want to live in October 7th forever. These are 3 wrong ways to handle the situation. But what we are working on, and that's why we founded FLM, and I hope I don't know if we put already by chat, but if not, we should, because we are asking for your support. We founded FLM because we realized that you need to take a long-term therapy in order to help these people to come back to life. And it's a day-to-day struggle, but it's not as if only after 5 years they will begin to live. No, they already live their lives. and they go through their challenges, and they are supported by their therapists. And there are little victories and many failures, but every day you're interweaving a bit more the tragedy with your identity, and you're trying to come back to know who you are in your world. So we can help these people. We just need to take them out in order to help them. And the need for support is because the state helps the first circle only. Parents, siblings, that's it. But we help also grandparents whose grandchildren were kidnapped or murdered, or cousins or uncles, aunts. So we also help second and third circles who are in the circles of trauma completely, and they need all the support they can get. So for them, we are asking for support around the world all the time, for donations. If you know an organization that can help us, then you have the information about FLM.
Great.
And I want to say one more thing. From what we hear, from what I told you about the release hostages, you can sense also their strength, their human strength, the amazing, the inspiring human strength that they activated in captivity. And for me, my grandfather was murdered in Mauthausen concentration camp. And I always knew that he was murdered 2 weeks before the camp was released. And I didn't give it a second thought. I just knew it as a fact. When I met these people who now came, and you saw their pictures and the association to the Holocaust, that we never associated anything. It was a taboo, and it all melted here after October 7, unfortunately. When I saw these people, and then when I heard them telling me their amazing efforts that they took, it made me realize what he went through in order to go back to his beloved wife and to his son. And 2 weeks before, he was murdered. So we are at the same point now. We don't have time. The reason we're meeting with you is that we don't have time. And we need everybody around the world to voice this plea, this pleading for Trump or for anyone. Any effort is sacred here, in order for people not to be murdered 2 weeks before they can come out, but to help them come out and meet their beloved wives and children and begin the long journey. Okay, it's a long journey, but it's a journey of life. When it's a journey of life, okay, we know how to take it step by step. We have to help the world understand that we need to take them out now. So that's why we are here.
That is why we are here. I'm going to take 2 minutes to just go over some of the questions and answers that people may not have seen in the Q&A. One question was, how many of the returned hostages are expressing suicidal thoughts? My guess is that many, if not most of them are. My guess is that that is also true of Nova survivors and of family members. And Dr. Aviva says there is no formal data. My guess is that, Mirav, in your work, you are seeing a lot of people who are not necessarily suiciding, but are thinking about their own deaths and thinking about whether they want to continue living. If I'm wrong, argue with me, because I want to just go through these questions.
I think you're wrong.
Okay.
I'm happy to say that you're wrong. I understand why it would sound natural, but you have to remember that these people took a huge effort in order to survive. So it's not true that most of them want to commit suicide or have suicidal thoughts. They have a great challenge. And also there is a difference between the Nova Festival and the guys who go back to their community. It's very interesting. We could talk for hours. There are so many, aspects. So community is a very strong thing. They share their experience. and this is also holding them. So there is more suicidal attempts and thoughts between the Nova Festival who go back home and they're alone because they were
Oh,
party and they go
that
back
makes
home. So
that
this
makes a
makes a
lot.
difference. There is many angles to this.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Another question we were going to just simply tell you reach out to Daphne is what can Americans or other foreign nationals do if we are on our way to Israel? Are there any opportunities? And I believe that someone will put Daphne's email in the chat so that you will have that. There is somebody who's asked for contact information for the presenters. That is not up to me. Are you using any alternative therapies like art therapy or somatic therapy?
Yes.
Again, I assume so, yes.
Yes.
Pet therapy, anything you can use, you're using.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. EMDR and play therapy and art therapy. Yes, everything.
Wonderful. Okay. So, first of all, I want to ask you both all how we can help your work. I assume donations make a difference. Tom will put that back in the chat. But what is it that you need? What can we do that would be helpful to you?
What we would like you to really believe is that every statement matters. Everything you say in a conference, at work, in a work meeting, family dinner, Facebook, a post on Facebook, a post on Instagram. Of course, if there are places to voice yourselves, I don't know, in a conference and that is devoted to this, even better. But also the smallest things, we go with the pin, with the yellow pin, because it's, I say in nature, one drop, one drop, one drop. You don't hear what it does until you hear the big crack of change. I want to say two small things to encourage you to do your thing. One is the thing that Rabbi Heschel said when he walked near Martin Luther King to Montgomery, and when he came back to his hotel, he wrote in his diary, "Today my feet were praying." So I'm asking all of us to pray with our feet, to do everything in our power, and the smallest step, it matters. And the second thing I want is an image for you to remember that will give you strength to be encouraged, because we also need courage in our world to voice these voices, unfortunately. There was behind me in my clinic, you don't see it, but behind me in my clinic sat a patient who waited for her husband for 500 days. And then he came back he was released from captivity, and we sat in our session, and he phoned her, and she took up her phone and she said, "How are you?" And I was in tears, because that's all we want. What do we want? We want these people to come back to their families, and it's possible. It's possible. We know it's from 0 to 1. So we do our drop to drop to drop. Whatever you do matters until we hear the crack of change, and these people will come back home and begin their long journey.
Thank you. So how can you, now I'm not asking a question to the panelists, I'm asking a question to the people on the call. How can you help? You can raise awareness throughout your community by having these wonderful resources come and talk to your synagogues or your communities, to invite them to give a talk via Zoom, to take this video and distribute it. You can reach out to people in the government of your country and ask for and demand increased pressure to get the hostages back. And you can continue to rally in every possible way. Make yourself visible, make yourself known, make it matter to people who have power that you and you and you and you all want desperately for these hostages to be back in the embrace of their families. That is what we all need. When healing happens, we don't heal backwards, we heal forwards. We don't heal to who we were, we heal to who we will be. And healing will happen when we make enough, when we get our people home. So it is time for us to get our people home. You've got
And urgently.
Pardon me?
And
urgently. Thank you, Aviva.
Yes.
You have information about how to get in, what you can do. Adva, I assume they will get everybody on this will get a copy of the Zoom itself. Yes, great. And I want to thank Bowie for all that you do. I want to thank Aviva and Mirav for holding people who need holding and for helping us understand what we are all up against. I want to thank Adva and Daphne and Hope for Israel Alliance for allowing me to be part of this. Go and do something meaningful. It is the thing that makes us human. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Betsy. Thank you
You're
welcome.
so much.
Thank you.